This is Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network, and I am your host, Mark. Today's guest is a sweet soul. Welcome Nikki O'Neill to the show. She's a singer-songwriter steeped in classic soul music. But her story is not one of coming up in Memphis or Muscle Shoals or Detroit or even Chicago, where she's based now. It's LA to Sweden, with a quick layover in Poland. But we don't even start this episode discussing music. We find our first piece of common ground in home appliances. Part of the way through this episode, I have to move a refrigerator. But through the magic of editing, you don't have to suffer through all of that. Nikki talks about her global journey, what it's like being the new kid in an entirely different country, what brought her back to the States, her musical influences, how she found love and a drummer at NAMM, her career in music journalism, and how she started working on her own music. Her new album is called Stories I Only Tell My Friends, and it's out tomorrow. Go to nikkioneal.com or Bandcamp to order it. Follow her on social media. Follow us at Performance ANX. Our merch is through performanceanx.threadless.com. You can keep me awake with coffee money at ko-fi.com/performanceanxiety. So grab your passport, because Nikki O'Neill is global on Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network.
Hey everyone, I'm Nikki O'Neill. I have an album out. Hi, take two. I'm Nikki O'Neill, and my album, Stories I Only Tell My Friends, is coming out March 14. And I had the pleasure to talk about it on the Performance Anxiety podcast with Mark Shea. I didn't screw that one up so much.
So we were at Home Depot last night or the night before, and we have to replace our dishwasher. So like, all right, well, let's go look at dishwashers. So we went and we found a dishwasher, and while we were finding this dishwasher, my youngest daughter is like, hey, check out this really cool refrigerator. And she was just kind of being silly, looking at it because it's got this cool water station or something, and
fancy details. Yeah.
And it's really, it's a glass front refrigerator.
Oh.
So it's like the top half is this like baby blue, and the bottom half is the freezer is two drawers, and they're both like this off-white. And the more I'm looking, and it's pretty big. It's like 29 cubic feet. So I'm like, this is really cool. And I look, and it's got this huge discount. That's really cool. So like, we can't do that right now. That's crazy. We just bought a dishwasher.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, oh yeah, but it'd be great. We would love it. That'd be so cool. It'd look great in the kitchen. I'm like, well, I'll tell you what, it says it's a 1-day sale. I'm like, I'm not falling for that crap. So if you guys look in a couple days and it's still there, consider it. Because we have to replace our refrigerator pretty soon anyway.
That's happened, when we bought our house. The fridge broke down the day after the sale was done. Oh. And but we managed to talk to the owner, and she agreed to replace the fridge. Yeah, I don't remember. This is a couple of years ago, but I think it went down something like that. So we went out to one of those Apt or whatever stores to buy a fridge.
Yeah.
I've never bought a fridge. It was like, whoa, this is like so much stuff here.
I know. And
so many bells and whistles. And
I know. And it's so expensive now, too.
Stuff is expensive, yeah. And we have to, I think 2 years into the house ownership, then our dishwasher broke down. And
of course.
Yeah, so I know all about, well, it's pricey to own a house.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Well, this stupid thing is so big with all the snow and the ice we've had, we can't get it in the house. So I'm sending my daughters back out to Home Depot to rent one of those dollies, dollies, and come back, and then we can hopefully get it inside the house tonight. So
okay.
So we're gonna record this while they're out there. So
okay. Are we recording the fridge part? Is it
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
So,
This was Home Talk.
the Fridge Podcast with Mark and Nikki. All right. So thank you for doing this.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I have to go get my tissues.
It's ice cold and icy and slippery in Chicago too. Yeah, we had friends who were going to stop by, and I noticed their presence by hearing a loud thud and then laughed.
Oh, no.
And they had slipped like right in front of the door, and luckily nobody busted their back or anything. But it's snowy. It's white Christmas, but not Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah, we just got hit with it last weekend, and it's just hanging around right now. So. The way I normally get into things is to find out a little bit about your past, to find out how music became so important to you. And I know you've got quite an unusual past. So I'm really anxious to find out about what was important to you, what got you into music, because you're originally from LA. Yes. But you ended up in Sweden. So I kind of want to find out how you got to Sweden and what kind of impact that had on you and musically and in your everyday life, because that's quite a change. Yeah. So all right, so you're originally from LA. So I think you were 7 or so when you moved to Sweden? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was born in Santa Monica, and I lived with my mom and grandma. My grandmother did not speak any English, or barely spoke English. So she was from Poland or Russia, but mostly Poland. Wow. Lived there. And then my mom was born in Poland. And so, yeah, we were in an apartment and spoke 2 languages. And then my mom, when I was 6 or so, she met a man who was Swedish, and he persuaded us to move to Sweden. And so I was 7 years old, and that I saw snow for the first time. Oh, man. That must have been awesome as a kid, though. It was, but snow part anyway. We were Sweden has these like really long winters where it's very dark, going from like end of December through late March, April. I think it was like early April we came to Sweden, but it's like, just dark all day long from 10 a.m. From 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. is where you kind of have a dusk-like light. Otherwise, it's pitch black. Wow. That's why they drink a lot, I think. That's my theory. Yeah. Especially during the winter. And then when it's sunlight and it's summer, then they live up its party and they're very happy about the light. But anyway, yeah, so I came to Sweden when I was, I was 7 years old when we got there. Wow. So you just like elementary school. Yeah, I'd done 1 year of elementary school in the U.S. because I started there when I was 6. In Sweden, you start when you're 7. So I was thrown into elementary school, didn't speak the language, and immersion. Like kids who are foreigners, you get to go to a special class to learn the language. Wow. Swedish is very different from English, and yeah. And all sorts of stuff that came along with it, or all kinds of like ideas, what the U.S. stands for, which I can understand some of it. But when you're a little kid, you don't really know like what capitalist is or what the U.S. did in, policing the world and Vietnam and all that. You don't really understand those things when you're 7. So, but I got to hear about that when we moved. So so it was a little intense moving there. Later on in life, as a teenager, I'll say, then I came to really like being there, or then I saw it, a lot of the positive things, the beautiful things about Sweden. So so it wasn't, just all heavy and negative, but despite the darkness.
despite the darkness. But I got a feel for what it's like to be a migrant, although it's not the same as like a lot of the migrants who are coming to Chicago now from Venezuela, who are, homeless or, scraping by and living, on the streets and begging outside of the stores, like what they're doing right now. But it still gives you an idea what it's like to, not fit in. And sometimes,
you're completely in a foreign land to you.
You're in a foreign land, and all the culture and the humor and everything that people have in common, you don't quite get. And sometimes you can be kind of dehumanized in a way, which is what I'm seeing with, the migrants who are like here from Venezuela. The people sometimes view them as like not human. It's they're just in the way. And so, yeah.
Well, that happens with Americans who are homeless too, unfortunately. People say
for sure.
Thing. It's so sad.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Obviously, music is really important to you. When you're in Sweden and you're a kid, what are you listening to? I know when you're growing up here in the U.S., because as I did, I was listening to the radio. My mom was into pop music. My dad was into country and bluegrass. But I know if in different countries, they have different musical traditions. And how did that affect you?
Absolutely. So I apologize. Somebody's ringing on the doorbell. I'm just going, Rich. Somebody's ringing on the doorbell. I don't know who it is.
Maybe they're delivering a refrigerator.
It might, somebody might be delivering something. Music that was, So, I mean, my mom was young when she had me, so she was a big music fan. I think that was her source of joy. When there was we were constantly changing apartments and moving, and she had heavy experiences as a child being in post World War II Poland, and my grandmother had experienced the war, and all these things. So there's like a lot of heaviness. So music was, I think, both of their source of joy. So I would I'll have to start by saying just what I heard in the U.S. So there would be, my mom listened to the classic Al Green records and Stevie Wonder songs in the key of life, stuff like that. And then and she was a big Santana fan, the early Santana stuff, Abraxas and that. Yeah. And when we came to Sweden, that was probably the music that I listened to a lot. It was like my connection to America. So I listened to a lot of Al Green and Santana, and later on she would get cassettes with like Dinah Washington, but she would also play. She had these like cassette tapes that she had made in the U.S. So there would be, songs, Ray Charles or Timmy Euro. Timmy Euro is like this rare, like soul music nerds know her as like the white Italian singer who did a song called Hurt. But otherwise people don't know her. But there's just this really eclectic mix of music and classical music too. So my mom and grandmother on weekends, they would take their transistor radio, and it had an antenna, and they would try to move it towards a station that they picked up that was from Poland. And it would have like the theme song was Chopin. It was like Military March, I think.
Oh, wow.
Dum, da-dum, da-da-da-da-dum, da-dum. So I remember hearing that and them trying to like get that signal and like dialing in the radio.
Wow.
So there was, big mix of music. And then eventually when I was in school, I must have heard some of the Swedish like popular music that was around at the time. Once clear memories is when I'm like 11 or 12. Then the guys in school, they were really into hard rock and heavy metal. So they would listen like, oh, I got this cassette with like Iron Maiden or Kiss. And then there were the Swedish bands, the equivalents. There was like Europe, which a young Europe way before the final countdown.
Yeah.
They're like puppies at this point. And so I started listening to that because I thought, oh, the guys, they're doing fun things. They're taking guitar lessons and they're discussing these tapes and discussing bands. And I thought, that sounds like fun. It sounds like a lot more fun than hanging out at the mall or talking about perfume and stuff.
Oh, wow. So that really hit you early then.
It did hit me early, and I wanted to pick up guitar like when I was 10, but my mom, for some reason, she was like, what for? So it took me till I was 16 until and I begged her to get an acoustic guitar or like something. And I got a guitar. I started taking lessons because in Sweden, music education, at least back then, it was subsidized. So you could get guitar lessons almost for free.
Oh, wow.
Which is great. Yeah, bands, if they wanted to do band practice, like you could have a punk band, and if you couldn't afford the rehearsal space, you could fill out this paper and say that you were studying. You're doing an 8-week study on something, and you're a punk band, and you submit it to the Department of Culture or whatever, the local department, and they could subsidize your rehearsal space rent. And this is one of the theories why there's so many musicians and like pop writers that sprung out of Sweden and started writing for Britney Spears and all that stuff. Yeah, there's like the pop miracle. So there's that. So I got to experience a bit of that, and so I got into rock and hard rock, and then Prince came along with Purple Rain. And I was obsessed, sitting at the local library because I, couldn't use my mom's stereo. She was like, "These are my records. You don't touch the stereo. Don't scratch up my records."
Oh, my dad was the same way.
She was like, "Don't scratch up my records." So I would go to the library and I would just sit and listen to Purple Rain, obsessively. And then eventually I met friends who also were big Prince fans, and we started a band together. And then they said, "Hey, if you dig Prince, have you heard Sly and the Family Stone, Earth, Wind and Fire, Jimi Hendrix?"
Oh, so you just kept getting deeper and deeper.
Yeah, and all these spin-off bands that Prince did, or when he had alter ego names, or like these Minneapolis artists.
Oh man,
so
I should send you. Send you a link after this, because one of the podcast I did a few months ago was with Prince's drummer, Michael Bland.
Oh, no, yeah. I saw that you'd interviewed him. I got to check it out.
Yeah, he's such a sweetheart. Oh my gosh, I love that guy. So cool. Your taste is getting pretty diverse as a young kid. I know when I was...
Always was.
When I was like 16, it was mostly metal. And then what I grew up on, like I would sneak in, because I grew up in New Jersey and people were dicks. So I would just, I would, if you weren't listening to metal, you had to hide what you were listening to either in your Walkman or in the cassette case. Like you'd have a cassette case from Megadeth, but the tape inside could be like Hall & Oates. So you had to hide it. Well,
I remember, here's a good story. So there was a phase when I was into hard rock and metal, and I hung out with some friends who were into that. And one time, this was in Stockholm, and we went to an amusement park that usually had concerts, and like big international artists would perform there. And one night we decided to go to this amusement park, and not to see any particular artist. We were just like, let's hang out, because it was like a good teenagers would go there because we're, too young to get into the clubs, or 18, there's a bouncer. There's like no way you can get in. Yeah. So that was a good place to go in the summer. Well, we get in, and in front of the stage, it's packed. And it's Ella Fitzgerald. And Ella is like in the midst of doing some scat, kind of. And I remember my friends, they're like, what is this shit? Hope I'm allowed to swear on your podcast. Yeah, but they were like, what is this crap? And I tried to be, like a teenager, you're trying to,
trying to fit in with...
Try to fit in. So I was like, yeah. But deep inside, I knew I was witnessing greatness. And I looked, I didn't say too much. I didn't chime in too much, but I was like, wow, this is really, something. She is special, and one day later in life, I will pay more attention.
Yeah. But at least at that point, even at that point, you were able to understand a little bit of it. So even if you didn't appreciate it as much that night, you knew what it was.
Yeah. I didn't understand the scat thing, but I understood that, this is somebody who's really great at what they're doing.
So at what point did you decide that music was something that you really wanted to pursue?
I think it was, Prince was around. I took a little while before I saw them in concert, but I, saw a little bit of like video clips, and I saw Sheila E. play drums.
Oh, nice.
And I thought, my God, I want to play drums. And my mom, had those Santana records that she played a lot. And I remember exactly where I was. I was like somewhere in the yard outside our apartment complex. And I remember just recalling certain songs from this album of Santana called Festival, which is kind of like in the middle of his, career, 70s career. Yeah. And I remember hearing those songs, and I was like, I gotta get a guitar. I have to learn how to do this. Oh, wow. And right at that time I got those guitar lessons, and they let me borrow a guitar. So, and then after I had done some lessons, I begged my mom again, please get me a guitar. And then she did for my 16th birthday. And it was an acoustic, a nylon string. But I locked myself up, and I sat with my little tape recorder and just tried to figure stuff out, and spent hours. Was obsessed.
That's got to be tough, listening to Santana and trying to do it on a nylon acoustic.
Oh man, I had no idea. I was like, why does his notes sound so long and mine don't? And I had no idea that it's like, well, it's an electric guitar, and he played really loud, and that's how you get the sustain. Yep. So I was like, my notes don't sound as long.
That's hilarious.
These amazing soaring notes over those congas. And
I don't play guitar very well. I'm definitely not a professional musician, but I remember going through the same thing. Like, how that must be the guitar. I have to get because I was a big, I loved the Shredders. I love Steve Vai and all that. And I have to get his guitar and amp. That's how you do it. I don't know the tech. Doesn't matter what your volume you're playing at. Okay, he had this, and that's how he's getting this sound. But I didn't know anything else beyond that. I'm like, Dad, can I get an Ibanez and a Mesa Boogie? My dad's like, no, you can get this cheap Fender Squier Bullet and this knockoff
great amp.
Speaker amp, practice amp. I'm like, okay, I'll take it.
Yeah, I'll take whatever I can.
Exactly. So,
it's funny. As much as I liked metal and stuff, it never dawned on me to learn to play that stuff. And maybe it was because it was so technical and super fast that my ears couldn't pick it up. Yeah, I mean, I was a huge Kiss fan, and it never dawned on me to learn their songs. But I would sing along with it, and I really like the hooks and things like that. But with Santana, for some reason, that made me think, I'm going to try to play along with this and figure this out.
Well, it makes sense, though, as you grew up listening to these amazing artists, and then I'm trying to figure out, I just had this in my brain. How did I figure this out? I think maybe it was the smoothness, because you grew up listening to Al Green, and then you fell in with Santana, and you wanted to play guitar. maybe just the beautiful tone and smoothness of his.
Maybe. And I know Prince, like later on, I learned Prince was like a huge Santana fan. People always used to say, "Oh, are you into Hendrix?" He was like, "No, I listened to Santana. He was my guy." And, I guess it was just whatever you're listening to was meant to be, because I didn't end up writing hard rock or like shred stuff.
Right.
So, yeah.
Were you singing from the beginning as well, or is that something that you started to do later?
Well, my mom, she would always she also played like a bunch of Barbara Streisand around the house. So it was very eclectic.
Wow.
And Polish cabaret tunes from the 60s. And they would both mom and grandma would sing along to that. And then Barbara Streisand. And so she would try to sing along. I enjoyed to sing along. And she would tell me, "No, that's not how she does it. That's not the vibrato." Or
way to go,
but
Mom.
I would do that in secret. I tried to, later on when I was into hard rock, I tried to sing hard rock. And I remember I auditioned for this metal band in Stockholm. And I was a little kid. I can't remember. I must have been 13 or 14. I don't know. I couldn't sing that to save my life. And one day I was replaced. I approached rehearsal one day and I heard this like power lungs. What's this? I opened the door and there was a woman, and she was American actually, and she had like a leather mini skirt and a big crucifix. And that was my replacement.
Oh.
Yeah. But she was the right person for that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So at some point, you go from playing in other people's bands to starting your own band. And when you start playing on your own, had you moved back to the U.S. or were you doing that in Sweden? Or were you?
Yeah.
At some point, didn't you move to Poland for a little while?
No, Poland was very, very brief. It was when I was 7, turning 8. It was very, very brief. My mom had to go there for some reason, and I ended up going with her. But then we got back to Sweden. So it was a very brief period. But yeah, in Sweden, mostly I played. Other people would sing my songs. So I'd write tunes and then other people would, other singers would sing them. And then I'd play guitar in other bands, no singing. Okay. Then eventually I moved to New York. Same thing there. I played guitar in other bands. And then eventually I decided to what is it? It's like this whole thing about singing and playing, and which was kind of tricky, the singing and playing at the same time.
Yeah.
At first I did backing vocals for other people, and that was challenging enough just to strum and not mess up your strumming and go ooh and ah.
Right.
And then eventually I learned how to sing and lead vocals, and I was so into songwriting at that point anyway. So yeah, it just became an organic process.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. What brought you back to the U.S. to initially anyway?
Well, I kind of wanted to start life over a little bit, and I was curious about the U.S. I was so in love with a lot of that music. Sitting in Sweden, for instance, here's, the beauty of cassettes and vinyl was that you could see the liner notes and the credits. And so sitting with records, I'd see, there's Manny's Music in New York City. Thank you, Manny's, or thank you, Bob Ludwig, mastering engineer. You see all these names, and being a music nerd, I was started to pay attention to the different studios and stuff. So I was very drawn to New York. And so I decided to move there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
My wife just came in the door. Hold on 1 second.
Sure. Absolutely. We can do a take 2 if you want.
Oh, yeah. Would you mind it like 10, 15 minutes or?
That's fine.
Okay. Okay.
All right, take two. Now, let me see.
Thank you for your flexibility. The saga of the refrigerator continues.
Fridge talk.
Yeah, it doesn't fit in the house, so.
Oh, man.
So it's now in the garage, and I'm gonna have to take it apart to get it in the house tomorrow.
Okay.
So I've suddenly become a refrigerator repairman.
Yeah. Wow.
What a shit show. All right. So now I have the additional joy of trying to remember where we were. Yes. You had just come back to the States.
You asked me like different music that I listened to, what made me pick up music, and so I think it was it was Prince. It was seeing Chile and seeing Wendy and Lisa in the Revolution, and that was really exciting. It was really inspiring, and also at the same time, I was kind of getting another appreciation for Santana and starting to listen to my mom's records and learning how to play through figuring out his stuff, his solos and his songs.
Trying to figure out a Santana solo, it's just I know I can't do it. So it's amazing to me when people are like, yeah, I took a little time, but I figured it out. I
don't know how accurate I was, but it's like, yeah.
So you make your way back to New York.
I went to New York to kind of, just try something different, a new life. I was fascinated by New York. Looking at records, you see all these like studios and music stores that were based in New York, Manny's Music and all that. And I thought, oh, it's cool. I've watched a bunch of movies and this romanticized idea. And I pawned my guitars and saved up some money, went to New York pretty much by myself. I knew one person there, ran out of the money pretty quick, and
New York's good for that.
Yes, indeed. and had I known what was ahead, then I maybe wouldn't have done that. But it was, you learn to live and all these experiences, and I don't regret it at all.
Youth is an amazing thing. So when you moved to New York, were you planning on music as a full-time job, or were you doing something else and music on the side?
I wanted to do that, but at the time I was doing a lot of freelance writing about music. And I did that in Sweden, and I don't know, maybe I didn't have the confidence. I didn't think that I had what it takes as a musician, unfortunately. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna write about music, and I got those kind of jobs pretty quickly. And then when I moved to New York, I had a couple of newspapers and magazines that knew about it. Oh. They were based in Sweden, and they said, oh, then you could interview artists when you're over there. Oh, and nice. So that's kind of how I made my living, a shaky living, because, New York, prices and rent and all that.
Oh, yeah.
And then I had some other odd jobs. I worked at Manny's Music. I answered phones at Electric Ladyland Studios a little bit. And so. Man,
you get right in there. The name you see on all these records you had, and then you're there.
Get right in there. Yeah.
That's awesome. So were you starting your own band at that point? Were you playing your own music, or were you just kind of doing it as a...
I was writing my own music, and I would, record it at other people's studios with musicians who were multi-instrumentalists, and, would kind of help me flesh these songs out. And it was my first experience in hearing my songs kind of, with more instrumentation and stuff like that. But cool. It was still far away from any kind of identity or, as a songwriter or stuff like that. But I started doing that. But otherwise, I was mostly playing other people's stuff. I was in an Afrobeat band called Kokolo Afrobeat Orchestra.
Oh, cool.
recorded an album the weekend after 9/11. So
Wow.
it was pretty intense. And the band was, I think it was at the most people, it was 15-piece band, and they were from all over the world. There were some guys from Israel, English guys from Japan.
Wow.
And it was like the United Nations. And
oh, that is awesome.
yeah. So yeah, if you can hear me, you can go on YouTube and you can like look up Kokolo Afrobeat Orchestra. There's an album called Fuss and Fight, and I play guitar on it under the moniker Nikki Stacks.
Oh,
so,
no.
Yeah.
So spelled like Nikki Six, Nikki Sacks. Stacks.
Yeah, Nikki Stacks.
Stacks.
Exactly.
That's
like
awesome.
the soul record label. But yeah, at this time, I'm just kind of bouncing around between projects, and it took several years until it kind of, I was like, no, I'm going to do my music, and I have an idea of what the sound is. It took a while.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was kind of fast forwarding to when I moved to Los Angeles. Unless you want to talk more about New York, but
well, I do have one question about the writing at this point. Well, I guess at any point, really. So you're born in the U.S. You spoke 2 languages here. Then you moved to Sweden and started speaking Swedish. Does that affect your songwriting at all? Having all that experience, and then I'm assuming when you were in Sweden, you spoke mostly Swedish.
I did, yeah. Funny enough, I didn't write any songs in Swedish. Definitely not in Polish, because I can't write in Polish, okay. And I can barely read. I can speak it, but as far as Swedish went, I think my tastes at the time were very kind of Anglophile and American, and I was into a lot of rock and hard rock, and those bands, they were also like, we're going to write in English.
Right.
And so there were other musical scenes and movements where they were all about writing in Swedish, but that wasn't what I was into at the time. So, so I always wrote in English. Yeah. Outside
of the Afrobeat band, were you always writing? And you've got a very classic sound to your music, to your writing, and the instrumentation. Were you always writing in that R&B, soul, classic rock or blues style, or did you do something else?
Yeah. No, I think so. I was always I remember in New York trying to team up with some musicians to play my songs, and they would, I remember one guy was like, oh, you do those like major 7th chords stuff. Oh. And like, nobody does that. That's like old school. And it was like, oh, great. Sorry, I didn't know.
Yeah.
And maybe it had to do with, what I was brought up with. I'll say one little thing, it might be an important component, like with my style and stuff, but in Sweden, so when I was listening, to hard rock and Mom's Al Green records and Santana records, there was the opportunity to study music in high school. They had a program where there was a lot of music, and you'd play in bands, and there was music theory and music history and private lessons. It was pretty intense. And I got a chance to attend that school. And, but they were it's very hardcore jazz, and very either you're into jazz or you're into classical music. Oh, and and it was kind of snobby in a way. And it was interesting. I heard your interview with Chris Green, and it was great because he's the total opposite. His attitude to jazz, totally different. I was brought up in the students. They were very only Charlie Parker and the fusion of California, Larry Carlton and Robin Ford, Chick Corea. That's the only thing counts. Everything else is shit. And Yeah, and they were like, Santana, what? My guitar teacher was like, I'm not teaching you any Santana stuff. And
Oh man.
yeah, so that was kind of a thing I had to do on my own. But what I did take away from that was I would learn these jazz chords, quote unquote. And I realized that, this is the stuff that's in the Al Green records and the Stevie Wonder songs and stuff.
Oh, nice. That's fantastic. You recognize that.
Yeah, I picked that up. I couldn't improvise. Like jazz, is very much about like improvising and like soloing and like based on the chords that are there. You kind of base your solos, and it's, you do that spur of the moment, and you take your knowledge about the harmony and your ears, what they're hearing, and you like solo. And I couldn't do that because I could barely play. I'd only played for like a year or something on my own, or a year and a half, and then thrown into this thing. And yeah, and they were like, oh, you're gonna play Duke Ellington songs. And I remember the teacher, first lesson, he handed me a paper, and it was like Satin Doll by Duke Ellington. And I'm looking, and it's like, music notation, and there are chords. And I'm like, what is D, M7 and G13? And this C with a triangle next to it. And he said, I guess it's up to you to find out. See you next week.
Oh.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal. And thankfully, there were a couple of people, like they were in the year above me. They were already like semi-professional musicians that were gigging and everything. Oh. But one guy, he kind of took me under his wing a little bit and taught me, like, here's how you do it.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then it was like the pressure of like that kind of lesson every week and just learning a million of these jazz standards.
Oh my God.
Eventually I connected dots and learned, but yeah, what I took away from that was the chords, and that's a big part of my style probably.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And your teacher must have forgotten that Santana did an album with John McLaughlin.
I know. Yeah.
Come on.
Whatever.
You should send it to him.
Yeah.
Hey. So, all right. So you end up moving to LA after a little while. What was there a reason for the move? Is it music related or? Yeah, or music love. But what happened was after being in New York, I did some teaching, and when you're one out of a gazillion musicians in New York, everybody's plastering little flyers on the light posts and like lessons. And like, what am I going to do to stand out? Because everybody's like, I'm a Berkeley master's or whatever, I've got all these credentials. Yeah.
And I was like, I thought, I'm Women's School of Rock. And
nice.
I came up with this thing, and people got really interested. And yeah, people thought that was a company. They're like, I want to work at Women's School of Rock. And I'm like, no, it's a one-person operation. It's me.
Very small company.
But that was so I did that, and my freelance writing, interviewing artists and stuff. I did that, and then I was teaching guitar lessons, and I learned about, there was a magazine at the time called Rocker Girl, and it was run by this woman who's in Seattle, and she had a conference besides the magazine. And this conference, it was in Seattle that year, and it was a bunch of panelists. There was like an education panel, a guitarist panel, and then the special guests were Patti Smith, Bonnie Raitt, and Ann Wilson.
Oh, wow.
And I was teaching at the time, and I was in some kind of online networks with female musicians, much to like, spread the word about my lessons and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I heard about the conference, and then there were some people on this online network, and they're like, you going to go to the conference? Yeah, we're going to team up, and I thought we share a hotel room. I thought, great, because I'm broke, starving artist, freelance writer. So we got there, and I got in touch with a guitar company called Daisy Rock Guitars. And maybe you remember there was some of these like flower shaped or butterfly shaped guitars that they had in the beginning, and then they kind of did more like normal shaped guitars and stuff. Yeah. But they were at that conference too, and they said, cool, the stuff you're doing, you should come to LA, come to the NAMM show.
Oh yeah.
And NAMM is like one of the two big international instrument conventions. There's like NAMM in California outside of Disneyland, and then there's Frankfurt Messe in Germany. And so people who make instruments, they come in from all over the world and to see the latest news, the latest products. And then there's a bunch of, famous musicians, and people do demos, and you see Stevie Wonder walk around, or Nita Strauss demoing her Ibanez guitar, or so yeah, it's a carnival. It's a complete zoo. There's also a lot of hair metal fans that still are wearing their spandex, and although their hair is like thinning out, and the women look like, oh my god, it's like Fellini's like movies, but with LA hair metal kind of. And it's just all a mix, there's that, and there's Stevie Wonder, and in the middle of all that, the Daisy Rock people introduced me to my husband to be. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, he worked for them, and we got to know each other. And I was in LA. So I was in New York. He was in LA. 6 months, long distance relationship, and then we bought a one-way ticket for me to LA, and I moved in with him. Oh, awesome. And that was 18 years ago. So
wow. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and we've been married for 15, and he plays drums with me. He plays drums on the album, and co-produced this album with me.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Not only do you find instruments sitting there, you can find love.
Yes, absolutely. So, so that's in the album. Stories I Only Tell My Friends is the name of that. And we produced it together. And
so when did you decide to start putting your own music out?
I always wanted to do that. And I would say it was when I moved to LA to move in with him. I was always into like education and stuff, so I learned about classes at UCLA. There was like a music program, and they had evening classes, so you didn't need to be like a full-time student. Okay. And there was one class about music production, and the guy was into recording and production, and he always had these great special guests. So he invited a guy who was musical director, Dapo Torremiro is his name. Okay. And he is like, now he writes for everybody. I mean, like from Celine Dion types to the big R&B artists, but he and he's a multi-instrumentalist, and so he was there, and I asked him if he would help me to, like, I got some songs. Could he help me like record and kind of arrange them and stuff? Okay. And he listened to my tunes, and he was like, I have some suggestions. I think, you should definitely keep your bluesy touch, and because you do, Hammond organ should be part of your sound. Yes. And so it kind of helped. And when I heard my songs come back at me, I mean, he played like bass, and there was some drum programming. I think my husband would later on like overdub real drums. Okay. But it was just like, wow, now I understand the power of a great arrangement.
Yes.
And I had already knew about that it's like, if you're going to write songs, you got to like know how to put the parts together. But that was something, you can absolutely take a great song and you can just ruin it with a crappy arrangement. and he showed me and I wasn't very like strong as a songwriter, but I knew I had something and I wanted to, do it. I, definitely had a strong urge to keep that going. And just hearing what he did was like, whoa, now I get, the power of great arrangement. And I had it was a tape with 3 or 4 songs. I probably paid way too much for it because he was musical director of Stevie Wonder and Lauryn Hill. Oh. And but he was, I knew he played with a lot of the artists I liked. So the way he played, it was the right spin on those songs. And even if it was pricey, it led me to find some great musicians. They heard it and they're like, I want to be part of that. Oh, and they weren't hired guns. They were like, I want to be in your band.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
It was definitely worth whatever the price was.
I guess, I would say it was. And sometimes you got to give in order to get. And I think that was a situation where that happened. And then from there on, I was just keep recording. I play with this band in LA. We played a bunch of shows, and you play, in order to get the gigs that are 2 hours or 3 hours, you might have to play some covers. It's hard to play all original material for that long. People won't be able to process that. Right. But then it taught me, okay, as a singer, what kind of music, I know I love these things, but can I sing it? Or what must I do in order to be able to sing?
Right, okay.
That stuff. Yeah, and guitar playing. We were a trio, and when you're a trio, oftentimes you have to really fill things out because you can't rely on anybody else. Everybody's very, very crucial, and there's nobody to hide behind.
Exactly.
And and so with blues players, people the trio formats. Well, I mean, there's the classic power trio. You fill a lot of space as opposed to the Afrobeat band. If there's 15 people, you just play one tiny thing and you stick to that. And because you don't want to clutter stuff. A lot of the soul music that I like, I mean, there's often, keyboards, guitars. You have to be careful about how you play.
Right.
Thick bar chords usually doesn't go so well because you'll step on the bass, and the keyboards, you'll be in the same frequency range and stuff. So you learn to play smaller chords, and rhythmically you're kind of, it's almost like a drum kit, with the different drums, what they do. People do different things with your feet.
Right.
But and it's the same when you play an R&B song or so, there's a small thing, but it's locking in with the drums, or it's locking in with the bass.
It's
in a way, it's
part of a whole.
It's very much a part of a whole. And so I learned a lot from that, and just playing lots of gigs and playing, bigger shows, and it's booking things before we had the songs together, but I figured that's how you have something to work towards.
Well, one of the things that I always like is when I go see a band live is when they bring out something that's new or they're working on, and they say, hey, we're just working on this. We're going to play this for you, but it's an in-progress thing. And I feel part of the process as part of the audience. This is really cool. I'm getting to hear something before it's completed. This is great. No, I've done that too. And even if a song is recorded, usually I like to take, maybe it's the end of the song or something, where give the others in the band a chance to shine and give the audience something to hear that they haven't heard before. And maybe it's stretching stuff out a bit, or the other guitarist gets to take a solo, and so, So you've got a really great classic sound. You've got that R&B bluesy sound. Do you use vintage instruments a lot, or are you using newer stuff?
They're not super vintagey, but I use kind of classic gear, I guess. I play mainly a Telecaster. The pickups are not very loud. The pickups, in fact, I think part of the name is 60s twang. So they're they fit the sound that, this style of music that I'm playing. They're not like super loud. Yeah. That was also a learning process because I didn't know what I was buying. Sometimes I'd put in some Yngwie Malmsteen thing and it's like, oh, it sounds like shit. and when you're buying a pickup, you're committing. You can't like return it, especially if you went at it with a soldering iron to put it into the guitar. So you kind of learn the hard way. But no, I play a Telecaster for most part, and it's through like Fender amp, classic Fender amp, deluxe reverb, or a Vox AC15.
Oh, cool.
Don't have a lot of pedals nowadays. I used to have more, but I'm more about trying to get a great sound as possible through your hands. Guitar through amp.
Oh, nice.
It's Ed Van Halen did it. I mean, he used some pedals, of course, but he was, just that's great sound.
Yeah.
Or some of the blues guitarists I like. They're kind of like au naturel. It's like plug it in.
Yeah.
Maybe a few things I'll use a tremolo or something to get a little bit of that wobbly pop staples sound or Americana sound.
But you can tell you can tell them even without using effects. You can hear who it is.
Yeah. With him, absolutely. So yeah.
One of the things that I really liked is your music is deeply steeped in R&B, blues, and soul, and even like you're saying, when it wasn't a popular genre, popular genres to be playing it, you played that was you and you knew it, and I love that. It's like this. Your music is full of self-assurance, even going back to like
thank you.
When Do I Tell Him? All the way up to
you listen to that stuff. Cool.
Oh yeah.
When do I tell him we can't go on? There's no use pretending like nothing is wrong. I don't wanna hurt him, but the feeling is gone. Worrying and wondering, when do I tell him? When do I tell him? How long?
And I love it because it sounds like you know who you are. And that's one of the things that I really liked about those albums and the new album. It is just, you're not trying to just sound like something else on the radio. You're like, this is what I love. This is who I am. This is what I'm going to do. And I think that's amazing. And you do such a great job with it.
Thank you. I love what I love, but I don't want it to be like, I'm not setting out to make retro music or pastiche or whatever you call it. Because sometimes, you can see those bands and first I get excited. I'm like, oh, wow, they look like this classic rock from the 70s. Yeah. And I'll dig it for a few songs. And then I'm like, why don't I just listen to my Led Zeppelin records or something? Yeah. They created it in that context. It was vibrant. And so if it gets too much like we're going to follow this template, but thank you. I love it. I think maybe it's, after being ping-ponging around with like all sorts of stuff, listening to all kinds of music, which I'm still open to, but I was, trying to play different styles, playing in different bands, and then eventually I'm like figuring out who I am and what I like and what I can do, and then you just try to be a better version of that all the time, or try and be a better singer. So when I was a singer at first, doing records, I would write a song, and I was like, hearing my heroes like in my head singing my song. And then when it was time to go to the studio, it was like, well, Shaka Khan's not there. It's just me in front of the mic.
The ghosts that walk this road with me, they keep crying, how long? Justice be denied the poor and all the people who suffer wrong. When will a generation rise to break the chain?
beat myself up. Damn, I can't like sing that stuff. Yeah. And with my second record, then I was like, I'm going to be, which is World is Waiting as that record. Then I was like, no, I'm going to become friends with my voice, and I'm going to be fine with who I am. Oh, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not Aretha. Certainly Shaka Khan, no way, nowhere near that. I can maybe relate to Carole King. Like, that's like...
Yeah.
And maybe some people thought, oh, she's kind of limited as a singer. But to me, I can't imagine hearing her songs without her. Or, I mean, I love listening to Tapestry, and these were like, you know, when I moved to New York, she was really important to me, because it was like a storyteller with a great sense of melody and harmony, the chords. Oh, yeah. Even though she played piano, but I was like, I can translate that to guitar because I know these jazz chords. I can try to figure this out. Yeah, being yourself is super important, because I've tried to do things where I wasn't, and it just came out kind of crappy.
I can understand that. I mean, now, what I've heard from you, none of it's crappy. I will tell you that right now. But from what I've heard, I like your latest the most. Which I guess that's a good thing.
Thank you.
And the album is so solid on it, but I definitely have a few favorites. And one of the things before I hit those is the album is so bright and positive sounding. And I
thank you.
It's so cool. Even the songs like that, I'm reading the titles and I'm thinking, wow, that sounds like a bummer. Like, I wish the sun could shine. I wish the sun could shine on me. That doesn't sound like it's. You're like, wow, that sounds like a sad title. But when you play the song, it could be. I mean, it's upbeat. It's like almost like Brand New Key by Melanie, kind of a upbeat, positive feel to it.
Skyline's tall, the streets are gritty. I wish the sun could shine on me. Why does it hide from me? I want to be a rose and not a sea. Skyline's tall, streets are gritty. Life is hard in New York City. I wish the sun could shine on me. I just got a letter.
I try to have a sense of humor with that one. Yeah. So, yeah, because it was like, you know, kind of, being broke, which I certainly remembered living in New York. And,
oh, yeah.
But I was also, with that one, during the pandemic, when it was lockdown and nobody was playing any gigs, or you couldn't, then, you know, we all took upon different personal projects. And one of mine was to figure out this guitar solo by Sister Rosetta Tharpe.
Ooh, I love her.
I said, and she's amazing. She's so amazing. And like listening to it really closely is like, oh my God, she's got these jazz chops, but she also plays with such swagger. And
she's doing it on an SG, right? Most of the
time. I think, mostly an SG, I think. And so that rubbed off on me in writing that song, for instance. Okay. Just saying.
Well, most of the research I did for this episode came from your song Newcomer Blues. Kind of kidding, but kind of not, because that song, it's just so open and raw. It's really fascinating to listen to, because I'm like, I started doing research for the podcast before I got a chance to listen to the album, and then I listened. I'm like, holy crap, I didn't have to read anything. I could have just listened to this song. It says so much.
When you're brought in the world by parents who have no connection, you gotta figure life out on your own. A kid in LA with grandma who doesn't speak English. She looked after me when daddy left mama alone. I'm a traveler with the newcomer blues. Move between homes as they give mama the news. Tenants with kids and pets, our band. Our fate was in our hands. More than my teacher.
Thank you. Yeah, it's hard to write. I mean, that feels, it's like my life story in a way, and coming from a different country and being a migrant and living in these different worlds and being caught in between cultures and like not fitting in, and all that. And I've learned to embrace that. That is part of my life, and there's a beauty in that. So that I got to experience different cultures and countries and different things, and that's why, you know, probably liking all these different styles of music and blending it in, and maybe being a white person who's playing African American music, mainly rooted in that. It's just, that's my theme of life, probably. So I'm starting to understand that now. So I'm embracing it. But yeah, it's it's a big topic. It's easy to, you know, if you get, I'm going to try to write about my life in one song. It's big, and there's a lot of experiences. I know there's one line there. I got more impressions than I could ever contain.
Yes, that's one of the lines that stood out to me most.
And that's been like my life. And, you know, a lot of times if it's a big topic like that and you try to write a song about it, it can become generic because the subject is so big. So like, how do you hone in on it? I try to use writing as a form. Like I would like take a memoir class and write essays, and it just got really heavy for me to do that, because music for me is like so much about, it's a joyful outlet. And writing, like the music part, the melodies, the chords, guitar riffs, the power of plugging into a Marshall or hearing that. Yeah. Music is like, it's a really joyful thing. A lot of times it's therapeutic. It connects to my emotions. It makes me feel things where sometimes I could be very cool and detached and like, nothing's gonna like bother me. I'm just gonna be cool about everything. Right. I think that might be a coping mechanism. Yeah. So music really helped me to feel, and to just do writing, it's too heavy for me. So I try to write about those things with essays a few years ago when I just moved to Chicago, and it became too heavy. But I don't know. I took a songwriting workshop with somebody that you've interviewed, Steve Dawson. Oh, man, he's great. He's a great singer-songwriter. I mean, yeah, we should really talk about him like that. He's not like a music teacher. Like he is an artist, and he's like, you know, lots of records he's put out and stuff. But one thing he does is he does teach a songwriting workshop at the Old Town School of Folk Music. And it's not for beginners, it's for people who write. So yeah, you're not gonna like learn what's the difference between a verse and a bridge. It's like, assume you already know that stuff. All right. And it's 8 weeks, and what he does is he gives you a prompt, and it might be something lyric related or melodic or rhythmic, or it's like, oh, write a melody that constantly escalates, or write a song that has lots of words, or, you know, and you have to write a complete song within that week and perform it in front of the group. Oh, wow. And yeah, you can't like, you know, come in with just a verse, because it's like everybody else wrote a song. So you learn, it's like, you can't like flake out, you know. And there are a lot of people in that group who are great lyric writers. So I don't know, being in that focused kind of environment, it was great for me because it put songwriting in the front burner of my life. And at times, you know, if you have a day job, or, you know, it's like everyday life can constantly take attention. And I was new in Chicago, and you know, I just need to make a living. I need to like find my footing here. It's like we came here right at the time of the pandemic, November 2020. It's lockdown. It's like there's no gigs anywhere. Stuff is closed. Yeah. So it took a year, and then yeah, it was like a break in my writing. It took a little while to get back into it. So learning about Steve's workshop was a great thing because it was this community of other good writers. And like, you got to write every week. And that was great. Then it was like, okay, this is priority. And after doing that a little bit, then, I decided to do an album, and then you get even more focused. It's like songs are going to fit together, and you start to see, okay, that song's great. That seems to fit together with this one. And then you try to fill in the missing pieces. You are starting to hear an album take shape, and it's like, I think I need a fast tempo song here. I need something, a gospel tune or something. So in that process, Newcomer Blues was one of those tunes, and I don't know, I managed to tell my story, and I love it. Like, write a song with a lot of words, and I was like, man, I don't listen too much to people like Bob Dylan or so, but it was I'll give it a shot. And it was, the right format for telling that story.
I think it's also a great way to end the album.
Yeah.
I like it. I like
thank
it
you.
There.
Thank you. I knew Drive was going to start the album, and I knew Newcomer Blues was going to end it. There was stuff in between that wasn't yet written. I wrote the songs in 2020, a little bit in 2023, but almost everything else, most of it in 2024. So really, it's all new stuff. Nothing that's been laying around,
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And, and I don't know, there's it seems like the songs are more music driven early in the beginning of the album, and then as it moves on, it becomes more lyric driven, like story songs. Yeah. And that wasn't my intention. It just ended up that way. I was like,
You mentioned that. One of my favorite song on the album is Candy Apple Morning.
Oh, okay.
I love it. Well, between that and Newcomer Blues, but I love the lyricalness out of Candy Apple Morning. I love the imagery of it. Maybe is better.
Thank you.
And I love the harmonies as it goes along. When the harmonies really kick in, they're absolutely beautiful. It's so great.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You got me rolling, candy apple morning, struck and I'm glowing, candy apple morning, you got me rolling, yeah, candy apple morning, struck and I'm glowing.
It's also, I'm blessed because the other guitarist in the band, Chris Corsell, he is a true soul music fan. So a lot of people that I've met who play Americana, they're like, oh yeah, soul music is great, but they're steeped in country or Americana, alternative country, whatever you call that.
Right. Okay.
And soul is kind of like, yeah, we can do the 101, like a little soul, like licks. But he knows, oh, we're going to go, hey, let's channel Philadelphia or Curtis Mayfield or Memphis High Records. He knows what I'm talking about. We're both big Prince fans, and so that is so fun. And just the ideas that, the stuff that he's playing, these little fills, that's Chris. And
it's so great when you have somebody who understands, and it can be almost nonverbal at times, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really glad that you like it.
I love it. And I also, one of my other favorites is If I Got the Upper Hand.
Oh, okay.
It's hard for me to pinpoint exactly what it is I like about that song, but I think it's like you're saying, the songs are getting more storytelling as it goes. I think that one seems to be like right in the middle, right in that sweet spot. It tells a great story, but it's as driven as the first few songs on the album. But I think it's kind of like the mix of everything in the album. I think that's the song that kind of encapsulates the album.
If I got the upper hand, what way would I take a stand? Would I spend my time getting even? Would I find my way through the feelings? As college came, I played it cool by the rules. To love, I learned I gotta put some.
Thank you. That's cool. It's interesting because I just started doing interviews about the album today, and there's one person I spoke to today, a writer, and she said about that song, it's like it's calm, but it's intense. Like the subject matter is intense, but it's like played with like in a calm way until it kind of breaks up and has this big kind of gospel-y backing vocals and
yeah, exactly. Which is I feel like it's got a little bit of everything that the album has to offer all in that song, which is one of the reasons why I love it so much.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you. It's lyric-wise, my thought was there's a lot of broken children walking around in adult bodies, and how do people process? If they were dealt a tough hand when they were young. Some people, they kind of transcend that. Others might be like, I'm going to show them, I'm going to get even.
Oh, yeah.
And then that kind of like continues throughout their entire lives. And I was thinking about that. And I remember in school, being, coming from America, coming to Sweden and not speaking the language. Yeah, it was difficult to fit in and stuff like that. But eventually when you become an adult, you have choices. You could start over in a different town, as I say in the song.
Yeah.
Others might climb that ladder of whatever, where you kicking people down as you're making your way up. And the analogy, the end of the song is, the singer, the narrator is a teacher and has a class with these kids. And, seeing that, okay, there's some people there, kids are alpha personalities. They're going to be the leaders. Are they going to develop empathy, or are they going to be these,
psychopaths?
Yeah, mean-spirited or whatever. You kind of, I'm seeing this in the, I or the teacher is seeing this in the classroom. And from my experience, I remember, I never taught in a school class setting, but I've taught guitar lessons and I've taught kids. And I remember some kids that came from homes that weren't that great, or parents didn't have time for them. And so I was trying to be a good role model. So even if I only met them once a week and I can't really affect their lives in a big manner, but during that time when they're coming, I can try to be a different adult than the ones they see every day.
And that may actually have a bigger effect than you think.
Maybe.
Hopefully.
Yeah. We'll see. And I certainly remember teachers that I met when I was young. Some were totally unaware of what was happening or what they're saying. And, it can be really hurtful things or really squash somebody's self-confidence. And they have no clue that they're doing that. And then there are others that are more aware or more encouraging. And I remember both very well. And,
yeah.
So, yeah.
So are you planning on playing a lot of shows to support the album? Or are you going to be local? Are you going to branch out?
Well, I guess starting local, but I'm open to, going out. So I'm in Chicago, so I'm open to playing, other parts of Illinois, but I could even go Milwaukee or Midwest. I don't know, the album's going to be promoted on radio, different Americana stations and stuff, and we'll see where people like it.
Okay.
it's tough to bring the entire band, although I'd really love to, but it's just economically, it could be tough. And I've gotten, requests with even the previous album to go to Europe. And I'm like, when are you going to go to Europe? And I can do that with my husband's the drummer, so on the album, and we always play together, so we could do it, but it'll be like a duo setting, or if we're going abroad or further out, it would be playing with local musicians, which a lot of people do that, and then it's hopefully it'll capture the spirit of the album. Or
you never know.
You never know. And I played last year at Americana Fest in Nashville, and they were great musicians, and they really liked the tunes, and they learned everything. They learned all the parts, but they were country guys. And so it had, and I mean, the soul music that I like, it has that one foot is in country because it's the Stax and High Records, and those cats, they were country musicians, but they played soul. And there is that foot in both worlds. But yeah, in Nashville, they're Nashville guys, Americana guys, and it will sound different.
It's if you're not on the road with people playing with them, it is going to sound different. The band that you play with all the time is going to definitely sound different than somebody who's learning your songs and can do a great job, but isn't they taking those miles with you?
Yeah, and the thing is that my band, I mean, many of the members, they're full-time musicians, so they're busy playing with other stuff. A lot of times when people are hired guns, and my bandmates are not hired guns, but when people are, they can like walk into a situation and be like, okay, I'm going to do what sounds good for that genre. I know my 101 R&B licks or something. They'll play it right. It's a little different when it's like you put your heart into it, you try to put your personality. And that was one thing with the band. We had, when I met them, we played a lot of shows. We played the music of my previous albums. And then it got to a point where it was like, the next step is to record an album with them and bring new music, and like everybody put in their parts. We sculpt the arrangements together, and they were really, really into it. They put their hearts into it, and they were, and I think you hear that.
Yeah, exactly. And you can hear it in the album, you can hear it live, and it makes a difference. So the album's coming out
March 14.
March 14. Okay, so what is the best way for people to find it and follow you on social media and see what you're up to?
On my website and on my socials, there's going to be a way for people to pre-add or pre-save the album on, Spotify or Apple Music or whatever they want to do if they want to do streaming. And I'm going to also sell it on my Bandcamp and on my website. And there'll be vinyl once, like if you're in Chicago, there's a release party on April 1st at the Colvin House. Just go to my website, nikkyoneal.com, and you can RSVP there. But that is where we're going to sell the vinyl. And it's the first time I'm doing an album of mine with vinyl.
Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations.
And CDs are going to be. Thank you.
What is the social media presence like? Where are you on Instagram, X?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. Still Facebook, music. Yeah, the music. Yeah, I'm on Facebook. If you go to nikkyoneal.com, go to the bottom of my homepage. It has all the little links to, YouTube, Bandcamp.
Oh, awesome. Well,
Spotify, Apple Music.
I have had a blast talking with you. It's been great. Thank you for putting up with my refrigerator interruptions.
All good.
Really
all good.
That. And thank you for sharing the music with me. It's really a fun album to listen to, and I've enjoyed it every time I've listened to it.
Thank you so much. It's been really fun having this conversation with you. Like I said, I heard your other episode with Chris Green and really enjoyed it. And so, yeah,
I
was excited to.
Yeah,
he's great.
He butt dialed me a few days ago, so I had to text him. I'm like, hey, man, did you mean to call me? He's like, no, sorry. But it was like right around Christmas.
I haven't learned the art of butt dialing.
Oh, God.
So, yeah.
I haven't had it happen. I've had it happen to me. I haven't done it very often.
No, it's like, very rarely for me.
But the one or two times I've done it, it was for podcast guests. And I'm like, oh, my gosh. And I think I'm trying to call him like all the time. This is not. But like I mentioned when we were texting before, that for a while, one of the first guests I had on the podcast was Jerry Gaskell from King's X. And I don't know what would happen, but like for like 6 months afterwards, like every 2 or 3 weeks, I would get a call and it would be like, Jerry Gaskell, why is Jerry Gaskell calling me? I mean, this is awesome, but why? So I would answer like, hello. And I would just hear static and background noise. I'm like, oh, it's a butt dial. And every time I would answer it, I'm like, just in case, you never know. But
I haven't done the butt dial thing. I on my second record, and actually 2 songs, Candy Apple Morning and another tune, Rainbow in the Cloud, were mixed by Ethan Allen, who works with Ben Harper. So it's not the furniture company. Ethan worked with Mavis Staples, this album that Ben Harper produced and stuff. But there was one time when we moved here to Chicago and we were like buying furniture and I got a text from Ethan Allen, the couch company. And, or so I thought, I don't know, or I was writing. I think it was, I was writing, and I got an answer back. No, this is Ethan, the mixing guy. I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. We bought some, I don't know, armchair or something. So,
I can't even imagine how often he gets that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think Ethan Allen is still existing, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I get the catalogs, but but I don't pay attention. Not my style.
Yeah.
But, but we bought one thing, and So
it wasn't it wasn't unheard of that it would happen. So, well, thank you so much, and I will talk to you real soon.
Thank you.